At Christmas dinner, my husband's family gave gifts to everyone but me. His mother mocked, saying, "Oh, we forgot about you." My husband laughed along with her. I smiled calmly and said, "Don't worry, I didn't forget about you." Their smiles faded when they opened my gift and understood everything. 6 years. 6 years of forced smiles and evasive glances. 6 years of being the intruder in a family that never wanted to accept me. My name is Elena, and this is the story of how I finally stopped being invisible. I met Marcos at university. He was attentive, funny, and made me feel special. We married young, in love, and with that naive certainty that love conquers all. What I didn't know was that the package included Consuelo, my mother-in-law, the undisputed matriarch of a family where her every word was law. From day one, her eyes evaluated me and apparently found me insufficient. "Interesting choice, son," she told Marcos when he introduced us. She didn't say more, but she didn't need to. The first few months, I tried to win her approval. I cooked special dishes when we were invited, brought small gifts, showed interest in their family stories, all useless. Consuelo had the ability to ignore me without seeming rude. Her daughters, my sisters-in-law Laura and Patricia, followed her example to perfection. "You brought dessert again?" "There was no need, we already had enough," she would say while placing my cake in a corner, far from the table where no one would try it. Family gatherings were exercises in patience. They talked about memories I didn't share, without bothering to explain them to me. They told inside jokes, laughing while I smiled without understanding. If I tried to participate, my voice was drowned out by someone else who started talking as if they hadn't heard me. The worst part was Marcos's passivity. After each family gathering, I would return home with a knot in my throat. "Did you see how your mother ignored me all night?" I would ask him. "You're exaggerating. Mom is like that with everyone. It's not personal," he would reply, downplaying it. "It's not worth making a drama out of this." But I knew it wasn't like that. I saw him interact with his sister's partners, who had been integrated into the family without problems. Only I remained in that limbo of distant courtesy. This year, the invitation for Christmas dinner arrived as always, a message from Consuelo in the family group where I was included, but never participated. "Everyone at home at 8. Marcos, confirm if you're coming with Elena." Marcos didn't even consult me. "Of course we'll be there, Mom," he replied instantly. I spent the week mentally preparing myself. I chose a red dress that gave me confidence, bought an expensive bottle of wine that I knew Esteban, my father-in-law, would like. I even baked gingerbread cookies, following my own family's traditional recipe. On Christmas Eve, while I was putting on my makeup, Marcos poked his head into the bathroom. "Are you almost ready?" "Mom just called asking if we can arrive a little earlier to help with some things." "Give me 10 minutes," I replied, carefully applying the red lipstick that matched my dress. "By the way," he added casually, "this year we all agreed not to spend much on gifts. Small things, you know." I nodded, but it was too late to change the gift I had bought for the family, a digital frame where I had loaded hundreds of family photos that I had been discreetly collecting for months. It had cost me a fortune and hours of work, but I thought that maybe, just maybe, this gesture would finally open some doors. Consuelo's house was sparkling with Christmas lights when we arrived. Through the window, I could see that the others were already there, even though we had arrived early as she requested. I took a deep breath before Marcos rang the doorbell. Esteban opened the door with a genuine smile. Of the whole family, he was the only one who seemed to treat me with true kindness. "Marcos, Elena, come in, it's freezing out there." The living room was decorated with Consuelo's typical excess. A huge tree dominated the corner, surrounded by a mountain of gifts wrapped in gold and red paper. My sisters-in-law were already there with their husbands, all with glasses of punch in hand. "They're finally here," exclaimed Consuelo from the kitchen, drying her hands on her apron. "Marcos, darling, come and taste the sauce, see if it needs anything." Not a word to me. My husband disappeared into the kitchen while I stood in the entrance holding the bottle of wine and the cookies. Finally, it was Esteban who approached. "Let me help you with that," he said, taking the bottle. "Wow, a Rioja Reserva. Excellent choice, Elena." Dinner went as usual, Consuelo presiding over the table, directing the conversation, making sure everyone had enough food. Everyone except me, whom she forgot to serve until Esteban did it for her. "And how's that job of yours going, Elena?" asked Laura with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Still at that small publishing house?" "Yes, in fact, I just got a promotion," I replied, trying to sound casual. "I'm now a senior editor." "How nice," she said, and immediately turned to her sister, Patricia. "Tell her about the cruise you booked." Marcos ate in silence, occasionally nodding at what his mother said, not noticing, or not wanting to notice, how they systematically marginalized me from every conversation. After dinner came the moment everyone was waiting for. The gifts. Consuelo, as always, orchestrated the distribution. "Let's go to the living room." "Esteban, bring the cava glasses." "Laura, help me with the gifts." We all settled around the tree. I discreetly placed my gift, larger than the others, next to the pile. Consuelo began to distribute. "This is for Patricia, from Mom and Dad. This one is for Juan, from Marcos. For Laura, from her brother." One by one, everyone received several packages. Marcos unwrapped an expensive sweater from his mother, a collector's book from his sisters. Even my sisters-in-law's husbands received gifts from everyone. The pile dwindled until there was nothing left, and I was still empty-handed. There was a moment of awkward silence. Esteban looked around, confused. Consuelo was the first to break the silence with a feigned gasp. "Oh, it seems we forgot about Elena." The laughter began. First Laura, then Patricia. Their husbands had the decency to pretend to examine their gifts. But what destroyed me was seeing Marcos, my own husband, join in the laughter with a knowing look at his mother. "It's just that with so many things to organize," Consuelo continued without the slightest remorse. I felt something break inside me. 6 years of humiliation, of being invisible, of waiting for my husband to defend me. 6 years waiting to be accepted by a family that enjoyed rejecting me. "Don't worry," I said in a surprisingly serene voice. "I didn't forget about you." I stood up and took my bag. The silence that followed my words was like a sudden change in air pressure before a storm. Everyone stared at me, some with confusion, others like Consuelo with a frozen smile that began to fade as she saw my expression. "In fact," I continued, "I've been preparing this gift for months." From inside my bag, I pulled out a red folder tied with a perfectly Christmas-y gold ribbon. I held it for a moment, feeling its weight, not just physical, but all that it represented. Years of frustration, of silent tears, of waiting in vain for things to change. "It's for the whole family," I added, placing it on the coffee table. "Especially for you, Consuelo." My mother-in-law stared at the folder as if it were a snake about to bite her. Her instinct told her something was wrong, but her arrogance prevented her from showing vulnerability. "How thoughtful, Elena," she said in that condescending tone I knew so well. "You shouldn't have bothered." "It wasn't any trouble, I assure you." Marcos looked at me with irritation. "Elena, what are you doing?" "Delivering my Christmas gift," I replied casually. "Why don't you open it, Consuelo? After all, you're the hostess." With obvious suspicion, Consuelo untied the ribbon and opened the folder. Her expression changed instantly upon seeing the contents. She flinched as if she had burned her fingers. "What is this?" she whispered. "Why don't you share it with everyone? It's a family gift, after all." Intrigued by his wife's reaction, Esteban leaned in to look. His face paled as he picked up one of the documents. "Consuelo, what does this mean?" The folder contained bank statements, transfers, copies of deeds, and legal documents, carefully organized and labeled. For the past year, I had been collecting evidence. It all started by chance, when I was helping Esteban with an online transaction and noticed suspicious transfers from his main account. After that, I began to investigate discreetly. "Dad, what's wrong?" asked Laura, alarmed by her father's expression. With trembling hands, Esteban extracted several documents and spread them out on the table. According to this, he said in a broken voice, "Our retirement savings account has been emptied, and there's an account at another bank in your mother's name with almost the same amount." Patricia jumped up and snatched other documents from the folder. "And this? What is this deed to an apartment on the coast?" Her voice rose with each word. "Mom." Consuelo's face had gone from pale to deep red. Her eyes shot daggers at me. "If this is an invasion of privacy, how dare you pry into our affairs?" But it was too late. Laura had found another section of the folder labeled with her name. "What is this?" Her voice trembled. "An email from you refusing to help me with the down payment on my house because you didn't have enough savings while you were secretly buying an apartment?" Laura's gaze shifted from her mother to her father, searching for an explanation. Esteban seemed to have aged 10 years in the last few minutes. "I didn't know anything about this," he murmured. Marcos had been paralyzed, staring at the documents that revealed how his mother had been manipulating the family finances for years. There was evidence that Consuelo had denied financial assistance to her own daughters while secretly amassing a small fortune. "There's something for you too, Marcos," I said, pointing to another section of the folder. "Those 30,000 euros that your mother convinced you not to lend to your friend Carlos for his business, saying it was a risky investment. 2 weeks later, she invested a similar amount in high-risk stocks that lost almost all their value." Marcos's face contorted in a grimace of disbelief and pain. Carlos had been his best friend since childhood. His business, which he finally managed to finance through other means, was now a success, and our relationship with him was never the same after denying him help. "This can't be true," Marcos stammered, but his voice lacked conviction. Consuelo stood up, trembling with rage. "All this has an explanation. I've been protecting the family, making investments for our future." "Our future? Or yours, Consuelo?" Esteban's voice sounded hollow. "The apartment in your name, the bank account I didn't know about. We've been married for 35 years and never." He couldn't finish the sentence. He clutched his chest, and his breathing became labored. "Dad." Laura rushed to his side. "Are you okay?" Esteban tried to answer, but only let out a strangled moan before collapsing on the sofa. His face had turned gray. "Call an ambulance," shouted Juan, Patricia's husband, running towards Esteban. The next few minutes were chaotic. Patricia calling emergencies, Juan loosening Esteban's tie, Laura crying as she held her father's hand. Consuelo was petrified, unable to react. Marcos turned to me, his face contorted with anger and fear. "Are you satisfied? Was this what you wanted?" "I didn't steal your father's money, Marcos. I wasn't the one who lied to his daughters, denying them help while buying properties in secret." The ambulance sirens could be heard in the distance. Esteban was breathing with difficulty, but he was conscious, clinging to Laura's hand as if it were a lifeline. When the paramedics entered, everyone stepped back to give them space as they moved Esteban onto the stretcher. His eyes met mine. In them, there was no accusation, but a strange mixture of sadness and gratitude. Consuelo approached to accompany him in the ambulance, but Esteban, in a gesture that stunned everyone, weakly pushed her away with his hand. "Laura," he whispered. "I want Laura to come." My sister-in-law, with tears in her eyes, nodded and followed the paramedics, leaving Consuelo paralyzed in the middle of the room. When the ambulance drove away, the silence that fell over the house was sepulchral. Patricia collected the scattered documents, reviewing them one by one, her face hardening. "All for your own lies. All done for the family," she insisted weakly, "to secure our future." "Our future, Patricia?" Laura let out a bitter laugh. "No, Mom, your future, only yours." Marcos remained silent, as if processing everything that had happened. Finally, he turned to me with pleading eyes. Elena, this is too much. Let's go home, please. Let's talk about this tomorrow, calmly. I watched him, searching his face for the man I had fallen in love with, but I only found someone willing to continue ignoring the truth for comfort, someone who preferred to blame me rather than face his mother's actions. And then I knew, with an absolute clarity that surprised me with its simplicity, what I had to do. Slowly, I took off my wedding ring, the same one he had put on me 6 years ago, promising us. Marcos' surprise would have been comical in other circumstances. What are you saying, Elena? You're upset, we all are. Tomorrow you'll still be the same man who laughed when his mother humiliated me. The same one who accuses me of destroying his family for exposing the truth, instead of blaming the one who really caused this damage. I placed the ring on the table next to the documents. I've waited 6 years for you to defend me, to choose me. I can't wait any longer. Marcos' face went from confusion to anger, and then to fear when he realized I was serious. You can't just leave like this. Why not? What's keeping me here? A marriage where I'm invisible? A family that despises me? A husband who is never on my side? I picked up my coat and my bag. Consuelo, who until then had observed our exchange in silence, stepped forward. This is what you always wanted, isn't it? To separate my son from his family? Well, you've managed to destroy us all. I looked at her, feeling strangely at peace. No, Consuelo, you destroyed your family when you decided to steal from them. You did it every time you lied, every time you manipulated, every time you treated me like an intruder to maintain your control. I only exposed what was already broken. I walked towards the door, pausing for a moment next to Marcos. I hope you understand someday that this is not about revenge. It's about dignity. Mine. And with those words, I stepped out into the cold Christmas Eve night, feeling as if I had just taken off a weight I had been carrying for too long. The following weeks were a whirlwind of changes. I rented a small apartment, started divorce proceedings, and focused on my work, where the promotion kept me busy. I learned through a brief call from Laura that Esteban had filed for divorce as soon as he left the hospital. Patricia had cut off all contact with her mother. The family that Consuelo had ruled with an iron fist had crumbled under the weight of her own lies. Marcos called me dozens of times during the first few weeks. At first, his messages were full of reproaches. Then came the apologies, the promises of change, the pleas to try again. I need you, he said in his messages. My family is destroyed. I need you more than ever. But I knew the truth. He didn't need me. He needed someone to help him rebuild the illusion of normalcy he so longed for. 3 months after that Christmas, while I was packing the last items left to collect from our old house, the doorbell rang. It was Marcos, haggard and with dark circles under his eyes. Can we talk? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. I let him in, keeping a prudent distance between us. My father sold the family home, he said after a long silence. My mother lives alone in an apartment. My sisters barely speak to me because they think I knew something. I didn't answer. There was nothing I could say that would alleviate his pain. I miss you, he continued. You were right about everything. I never defended you. I never put you first. I've been a coward and a bad husband. For a moment, I felt the pull of the old Elena, the one who would have jumped to comfort him, to forgive him, to prioritize his needs over my own. I'm sorry, Marcos, I said finally. But I can't go back. You don't love me anymore. Your eyes beg, but this is not a fairy tale where love fixes everything. Sometimes love is not enough. It takes respect, loyalty, courage. And I learned the hard way that you also need to love yourself enough to know when to leave. He left shortly after, taking with him the keys to what was once our home. Through the window, I watched him walk away slowly, his shoulders slumped, so different from the confident man I had fallen in love with. I felt a pang of sadness, not for what I had lost, but for what I never really had, a partner who valued me, a family that welcomed me, a place where I truly belonged. That night, alone in my new apartment, small but mine alone, I poured myself a glass of wine and toasted in silence to the truths revealed and the masks dropped, to the endings that are necessary for new beginnings.